Alright, hey guys, King of Charmanders here, and I have the... It's really pretty, it's really cool, but it's actually pretty good for the Love Cup. So if you like water Pokemon, you don't have Alomomola, a good substitute is actually Milotic, if you really want to use water Pokemon. So as you see, Milotic over here is a very powerful... It's a pure water type, so that means pure water types only have two weaknesses. That's electric and grass. As you see here, it has a very bulky stat spread. Not super bulky because it's Great League, so you have like your attack and defense are pretty... It's still decently tanky. Not as tanky as Alomomola, but it's still pretty dang good. Again, pure water types only have two weaknesses, electric and grass. So Electrode and Shadow Victory Vileplume. So if you're able to take if you're able to avoid those, you actually do pretty well. As you see here, you resist fire, ice, steel, and water. So you resist other water types. You also resist fire types like Charizard, etc., Blast Burns. You probably won't see too much ice and steel, but it's still pretty decent. As you see here, it has Waterfall, Surf, Hyper Beam, Blizzard. Do not use Dragon Tail. There's no reason for you to use Dragon Tail in this meta, but as you see here, it's very powerful. It doesn't have a lot of good move pool. However, it does have an overpowered move pool, but it does have Waterfall, so you can do chunk damage, Surf, Hyper Beam, Blizzard. So it still like I said, with Waterfall, there's a lot of like tap damage capability, especially since Waterfall does generate a decent amount of energy for you to get to Surf. Alright, so Milotic actually ranks at number 13 overall for the rankings. As you see here, it's not bad at all. It's very unique. It does well in the lead and closer, so if you leave it in the back, it's not so good as a switch compared to Alomomola, but as you see here, it actually loses to Alomomola. That's what makes it interesting. Alomomola can outbulk Alomomola outbulks Milotic, but Milotic has Hyper Beam. So Milotic can nuke a lot of things if it's able to land. Its main strength is being able to take out all the fire types, as you see here. Unfortunately, it does lose to fighters and to Electrode, as Alomomola does. So it's basically, if you want to use it, it's basically the poor man's Alomomola. In the lead, it ranks at number 11. You can still take a Clefable in the fire types, like I mentioned. It's 18 as a closer, taking out mostly fire types and rock types. This is where you'll lose Clefable in the closer if you don't have energy lead, because you need to basically hit Hyper Beam. What makes Milotic really good is it has Surf for kind of a bait move. That's kind of what makes that's kind of what Alomomola sells. Surf only takes 40 energy, and because Waterfall generates, you can use Surf to bait shields, or if you get to it, Hyper Beam. Alright, here's peatpoke.com and Matrix. As I always say, please don't consider doing it peatpoke.com. Here's my Milotic. As you see, it's Hyper Beam, Surf. I also have Surf Blizzard. There's no real reason for you to run Blizzard, because if you run Blizzard, pretty much Alomomola can kill you. So, here's the 2-shield. We're going to run the Matrix. As you see here, this is the big reason why you want Hyper Beam, because with Hyper Beam, you can actually take out Alomomola in certain scenarios. As you see here, you can take it out with shield advantage or in the 2-shield. Now, the 2-shield's risky because you have to double bait. If you do land a beam through the shields, though, as you see here, you could just go straight Surf. You need to land a beam, and then you could straight Surf. But that's what makes this matchup kind of weird, is because, like, you need to land a beam. If you don't land a beam, you die. It's that simple. And you only win it with shield advantage. Now, you're going to melt Charizard. You're going to lose against grass types, whatever, because it resists your Waterfalls. You also lose against Clefable and against Wigglytuff because of Charm. So Charm 2 Shield actually does melt Milotic. The only way you win is if you have an energy lead. As you see here, they pretty much melt you unless you have shield advantage, as you see here. And that's assuming that you don't have chip damage, because you literally... As you see here, Milotic wins with 9 HP. So if you have chip and you have no energy, you're gonna lose. So you need to have energy to get Hyper Beam, otherwise you lose. So that's what's kind of bad about Milotic. It really needs to watch out for those Charmers. As you see here, not too great against the rest of the meta, but Just because, yeah, it does a lot to a lot of things. As you see here, you lose against Shadow Vileplume, and because it's slow with Waterfall energy, you can't really force, like, bait scenarios with Surf. You can bait shields, but it's not going to be comfortable. In the one shield, things get a little better. As you see here, you beat Crustle, Clefable. You actually flip the Clefable matchup in the one shield versus the two shield, and as you see, you still lose against pretty much everything else. And this is where Alomomola will beat you. It barely edges you out, as you see here. Unless you land the beam, like I mentioned before. If you can't land the beam, you're great. Now, the no shield is so the no shield is the second best position for... I think it's, like, pretty even, to be honest with you. In a no shield, you pretty much be consistent in what you beat. It's really good against the fire types. But unfortunately, in the no shield, you actually lose against Clefable. Clefable can take you out with Moonblast. Or Psychic, either one. But as you see here, you still lose pretty hard against Scrafty and everything like that, unless you have shield advantage, just because it's slow. If you have shield advantage, if you're in the 1-0s or 2-0s, you're golden, you do a lot of damage, but there are better picks out there for Milotic. Someone was really interested in Milotic, so I took a look at it, and it's basically the cheaper version of Alomomola, but it's not really worth running, as you see here. It's hard to find a Phoebus, and yeah, it's... Unless you have 1-0s, you don't really have a comfortable matchup. And there's not a, and it's like there's better Pokemon out there that can help you out. In the 2-0s, you will beat the entire meta except for Shadow Vileplume. Shadow Vileplume will shred you just because you are a water type. As you see here, you literally have no way out. You get destroyed. Unless you're able to land a beam, which is very unlikely because of the fact that Waterfall takes so long to get to Hyper Beam or Blizzard. In the 2-1s, it doesn't do much better even with shield advantage. You pick up a few matchups here and there, but that's mostly because of the Waterfall damage. As you see, you'll still lose against Wigglytuff, Vileplume, and also Lickitung XL just because things that outthick you or if they're grass types, as you see here. So, not very powerful. It's runnable, but like if you're looking for something, like if you don't have a Alomomola, I wouldn't recommend running on Milotic. It's okay, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. So sadly, I give Milotic like a 6 out of 10. It's not that great. If you don't have Alomomola is great because it has an insane amount of bulk. It's literally insane at how bulky it is. Because of that, it lives a lot of things and it has a great move pool, but unfortunately, Milotic doesn't. As you see here in the 2 shield, you do very well still, but however, as you start losing shields, things start going down. The thing about Milotic is that Milotic isn't... because it lacks the bulk that Alomomola has, it makes it very difficult to justify using it. Surf is not a great bait move. Even if it does go through, it doesn't do a ton of damage. So Milotic's best... It does great against fire types and against steel types, but other than that, it's not really that great. As you see, you lose against a lot of archetypes of tech, especially the Charmers, and you only beat them in certain scenarios. If you force a Alomomola into the 0s, it basically loses a ton of it's gonna lose a ton. So it's just it still does above 50% in most scenarios. However, against most patterns, it's not going to do too well in this meta. Its best position is literally being in the 2-0s, and even then, it's not that great. And the reason being is because you beam everything to death. But the problem is if they... The problem with Milotic is just like what I mentioned before. It does have a bait move compared to Alomomola. However, Alomomola's bulk allows you to create so much more play than Milotic does. Milotic also isn't too common. Like, you don't see too many Phoebus nowadays, so it's not super common. So if you don't have a Alomomola, you can use Milotic, but only if you're trying to do it for fun. If you're trying to climb a legend, do not use Milotic, unfortunately. As pretty as it is, with the lack of a, like I said, with a great bait move, and because Waterfall is just too slow and it doesn't have bulk, it's not super bulky. Fortunately, I can't approve for Milotic for the Left Cup. It's fun to use. Like, I plan, like, I'll give it a shot, but I don't think it's gonna do very well. You also get shred by Shadow Vileplume, so if they do have Churm, like Razor Leaf Churm and Razor Leaf Shadow Vileplume, will destroy you. So, yeah, that's not great. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. Good luck on your Go Balix hits, and I will see you guys on the next video.